let me just start the recording here. So you are watching and listening to the Lockdown Vaccine Podcast. Of course, I am coming to you every single day during the lockdown because we're all in the lockdown together. We all have nothing to do now. I've got no job now, so I'd be as well do something to use my skills and my abilities to at least provide the nation, or at least 500 people within the nation, of some facts and truth that kind of underpin this whole COVID-19 epidemic we are facing just now. I slept in so badly today. This is only my second coffee. I'm normally at coffee 4 by this time. This is actually ridiculous. So of course, this is the Lockdown Vaccine Podcast. If you're watching this, please like, share this out, because by hell, spreading information and promoting myself at the moment seems to be one of the hardest things there is I have done in so long. Like, for instance, one problem I've noticed that's happening, and it's very rarely I talk about this sort of thing, because I'm going to talk about shadow banning very quickly. I always thought shadow banning was like a myth. I thought it was bullshit, but it has happened to me a few times over the past. And one of the curious things that's happened to me in the last few weeks, since I've started analysing the coronavirus stats daily, and since I've been publicly speaking out against like government ministers with evidence from their own data sheets, my Twitter account has been shadow banned to hell. Now, I've checked this out on other accounts, right? I've been on other accounts. You look at my profile, all you see is the pinned message. It's like Twitter is stopping, not everyone, but most people from seeing anything I tweet. And it's getting, I've got no idea why. It's like people are only seeing my tweets if they see them like in someone else's comments. I've got no idea why it's happening. I looked, like, I've got friends, I've got Twitter accounts, they've checked for me, and everyone that's checked has noticed the same sort of thing. So I've got no idea how I can combat that. So if you're watching this, please share this out. Share this out. Share this out. It's free. I'm not asking for anything. I might in the future, because as I said, I've lost my job because of the coronavirus. Like most of us, we're all in the same boat here. But that said, this is the Lockdown Vaccine Podcast. Thank you for watching. Let's get into this. So the first thing we're going to talk about today are yesterday's government released coronavirus statistics for the UK. Now, today we're going to do a deep dive. We're going to have a really close look at the statistics, and I'll show you what I mean, because I record all the coronavirus statistics that is released from government, and I do some other work on them because I am genuinely interested at learning how the spread is growing day on day, how many people are actually dying day on day, how many tests have been done. So, I mean, BBC kind of, we'll get into that in a second. And I've really got a big interest in the stats. So first of all, we'll talk about the stats that this government released yesterday. So the government release 3 stats every day: how much they've tested, how many people have tested positive, and how many people have died. They also release stats for how many people have been recovered and that sort of stuff, but we don't focus on them for just now, because we can look at them at a later date when people start recovering on in bigger numbers, basically. So yesterday, the government released that in the last 24 hours they had tested 143,186 people. So that is an increase. That basically means in the last day they tested 8,240 people. Again, now, on Sunday, people might have seen my tweet on this. On Sunday, Matt Hancock said on Twitter, and Michael Gove has said the same thing. They both said that government has officially reached 10,000 tests per day, and that they have tested over 10,000 tests per day, and that they want to test 25,000 a day. Now, that is a lie. That is utter bullshit. Our UK government, according to the statistics which they release on their own freaking website, like seriously, via the .gov website, shows that what Matt Hancock and Michael Gove said was rubbish. It was total bullshit. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Actually, no, let's look at the tests very quickly. So, what you see on screen now are the tests for the last 13 days. Now, for the tests, I've only got that last 11 days. I'm going to get the other two in. They do exist. They are on record, thankfully. Now, an interesting little factoid here. The government release all the stats every day, but they don't release the stats in a table sort of form or in a CSV or in a spreadsheet. They just release the stats. Every single day, the page that released the stats just gets overwritten with the new stats. So, I don't know if government are doing this to try and just put one number out every day, but not have them recorded so people don't notice any patterns and are able to count any differences or what. Thankfully, places like Wayback Machine exists, so I've been able to go back and get all the data and record it in this spreadsheet form. So, I mean, Matt Hancock on Sunday said that government have tested more than 10,000 people and that we're on track to get 25,000. That's rubbish. As you can see on the spreadsheet on the screen there, now it's down there below me. If you look at the red column, that shows the amount of tests that government have done every single day. Now, as you can see there, the most tests government have ever done in a day was 8,911, and that was on, I think that was the stats that they released on the 28th, so that would have been for the 27th of March. That is the record. That is the most tests for coronavirus government have done in any day. 8,911. It's not 10,000. It's not even 9,000. And this kind of underpins the dishonesty that we're getting from UK government now. And as I briefly mentioned the BBC there today, just mainly because the BBC have been absolutely disgusting me today. People like Norman Smith, who are meant to be journalists. They're meant to be political journalists, but they're not. They're not doing journalism. They're just taking what the government are telling them at face value and repeating it on TV as if it's truth. Now, in response to this, I've been working on this for like the last week, so I was going to be. My plan was to uncover the lack of testing on today's podcast. That has been my plan for days now. So when this all came out yesterday afternoon, I was like, Jesus. So I put my stuff out, hopefully that people could see that, and hopefully it can help other people work out who is telling the truth within the whole coronavirus statistic argument. But yeah, they got caught for it. The government's got caught. And in response, Michael Gove has said that we have not been able... there's two things that are stopping the government from doing testing, as they say. One was a lack of reagent. Now, a reagent is like a chemical compound that is used to react with your blood or whatever you're using to test, and then show if you've got coronavirus or not. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I've butchered that, but regardless, it's to do with chemical reactions. Now, Michael Gove said that there's a lack of reagents. Instantly, people from the science communities, people that sell these sorts of things, have come out and said, no, that is simply not true. There is not a lack of reagents or things to do the test. And what actually is the case is that the UK lack parts. Like, for instance, to do a coronavirus test, you don't just need a reagent. You need swabs. So that's like the big wooden cotton buds. You need swabs. You need sometimes you'll need like the little square swabs so you can swab a bit of blood off someone, or you need different parts to do the test. It's not just a test tube and some liquid. You need the bits to take the tissue and put it into the reagent and get the process done. And what is actually the case in the UK is like we don't have a lot of swabs, and again, it is not because there is a shortage. There's not enough parts for whatever test in the UK because there's a shortage. They're not there because they weren't ordered in time. It's like you could argue we've had since December to prepare this. We've had like December, January to get these tests and get everything ordered, but government didn't do it. And now they're just trying to say, oh, there's a lack of it. And it's like, well, no, there's not a lack. You've just not bought it. So that's the testing argument. As I said, we're going to have a closer look at the stats in a little minute. Now, yesterday, The total amount of positive cases in the UK has went up by 13.59% to 25,150. So that's again, now this is cool, but I think that what we're seeing here is a definite flattening of the curve. Now, as you would have remembered last week, you would have. Where's the bit of paper I've had? I don't have it to hand. See, I keep here. Here we go. You may remember that I pulled this bit of paper out last week, right? It's got my dyslexic handwriting on it. It's got loads of stuff on it, and this was the model I created last week to try and extrapolate and project where the total amount of coronavirus cases would be in a week. And if you remember, I wanted to work out when the UK would hit 50,000 cases. Ugh. So we've been working on this, and with the positive cases, and there is a definite slowdown. Now, as you would remember there was a line at this bit here between the 28th of March and the 29th of March, and that is where I thought that going by what's happening, that we would start to see the lockdown would start to affect what's happening, and the lockdown would start to affect the amount of total cases, and we would start to see a slowdown around about the 28th and the 29th. And the stats are actually showing that this seemed to be true, because if we look from last week, the stats ranged from, I mean, I would ignore the 23rd, I don't know why that was just 11%, that was just a bit of an anomaly, but the other ones are all between, say, 17 and 23%. Now, as soon as we hit the 27th, that is after, say, a week of lockdown. As we can see, there's a marked decline, and it's not like the 11% the week before, which just happened and went away. What we're seeing now is a definite decline. Now, today I would expect to see the total rise in cases at about 13% again. Now, very quickly, before we go back into the stats, and we'll have a look at that in a second, let's talk about the deaths, because yesterday had a huge increase in the deaths. Percentage-wise, it is not the biggest increase in deaths we have seen yet, but when we're counting actual people, then yes, it is the biggest rise in deaths so far. So the deaths rose 27.5% to 789 people. Now, as we can see by here, that equates to 381 deaths in that last 24-hour period, which is really bad. But I mean, yesterday the news's main angle on the death count was that it's the biggest amount of deaths we've seen yet, and yeah, that is really true, but it's not the biggest percentage of deaths we've seen. So I think the news could have reported that a bit better, but we're always going to see stuff like this. And hey, they probably say the same thing about the way I'm reporting the stats. So that's fair enough. But that's your stats for the day so far. So if anyone's watching with any questions and stuff like that, feel free to put them in the comments. Of course, this is on Periscope, so you can send hearts, you can put comments, you can do all that sort of stuff. It's all really cool. And of course, share it out, because that's what we need to do. And thanks for watching. I just need a sip of coffee. And let's move on to the next section, because as I said today I wanted to do a deep dive. I wanted to have a real close look at the amounts of cases, total cases, the daily increase in cases, the deaths, and what this all means in a bigger picture. So as we can see here, I have been keeping I've been keeping a tally of the stats that government release on here. From that, I am working out how many cases we actually see per day, how many deaths we see per day, what the mortality rate is for that day, and a whole lot of stuff, and we're going to go into it now. So the first column we see here, total rise in cases in percent. So what this tracks is, and this combines with the next one, which is the number. The number is what government releases every day on their website. So that's the total coronavirus cases in the UK. The column here to the left of that is the percentages rises that I've been working out every single day. So as you can see, yesterday we rose by 13.5%. Now from there, what I'm going to have to do is because there has been a drop, as we can see from like round about the 28th, 29th, there's been a marked drop in the percentage of total new cases per day. So what I'm going to do tomorrow, later on today actually, once we have the stats for the 31st of March, I will be reworking this model. So I will be reworking this model and basing it on the data from the 1st of April to the 29th. So it's only going to, the model's only going to be based on that 4 days, but I've got a funny feeling that whatever data we see in this 4 days, I think this is going to be the reality for a long drawn out period. So we can also see here the actual amount of cases we are finding per day. Now one of them that jumps out right to my eyes is the number that we have for the 26th. Now, I didn't notice this before, but if you notice, like, the government has never tested over 10,000 people per day. We know this. The government have said this on their own website to the point where it feels like they have forgot that they actually released the data themselves. But as we can see in there, cases per day, they somehow worked out that over 11,000 people had been tested positive for coronavirus on that. Like, what the hell is that? This begs the question. It's like, when someone is tested, are all the test results coming back in that same day? Because what this could well mean is that some of these people were actually tested the day before. Now, I should say that the pink lines there, they're not weekends. It's just a 7-day block. I should have did it in a block. It just divides everything into 7-day blocks. But yeah, I'm really quite interested in that. That's something I'm going to have to look a bit closer into, because how can government know that 11,000 people have coronavirus in one day when on that day, now let's have a look at that, 26, we've got the test stats here, on the 26th of March, government only tested 7,847 people. The day before they tested 6,583. Now, how can that happen? Okay, right. Now, I didn't notice this before, but we have maybe stumbled on a bullshit created anomaly here. Wow. That is something to come back to later on. So what I'll do is, when I recreate this model tomorrow, I'll investigate this odd anomaly in the total cases per day, and I'll get back on that. But let's look closely at the deaths and the percentage rises in deaths per day. So, as they said on the media yesterday, yes, the results, the stats for the 31st showed the largest increase of deaths in the UK of coronavirus in any day we've seen yet. Now, yeah, as a whole number, that is true. As a percentage, it was not true. When we look percentage-wise at the percentage of people who have died in compared to the total percentage of total people with coronavirus that day, then we can start to ascertain that. But I mean, yeah, there has been days where we have seen larger rises in percent of death. But really, we did have this block in the 27th and the 28th where the deaths were really high. We were getting a high percentage, like in the 30s every single day. Now, I don't know, like, it's hard to work out what's happening with the deaths. Now, with the cases, right? With the amount of positive cases we see, we can clearly see that there has been a slowdown. Now, when we analyse the government's plan and what their plan is, publicly they tell us the plan is to slow down the NHS, right? And I'll rephrase that. The plan is to slow down the amount of people who are presenting to the NHS who need help in hospital for coronavirus. Okay? Now, the government denied that they were going with this herd immunity plan. This, which is because, quite frankly, it's evil. But what we're seeing in this, I feel that what we're seeing in this stats lends credence to that fact. Now, when we see the slowdown in positive cases, that is what government said they wanted. They didn't want to stop people getting coronavirus, which is what every other country is trying to do. They're testing, isolating, and eradicating the virus from their countries. The UK's plan now, and government went on TV and denied this, but their plan clearly is to just slow down the rate at which people are catching coronavirus. Now, here's the kicker for me. When we look at the stats and we can see that government are they're not stopping the spread of coronavirus, they're just slowing it down. We look at the state of society at the moment. We've got doctors, nurses, frontline staff, people who are dealing with people who are seriously ill with coronavirus that don't have the PPE. They're not being protected. We're not being protected in the outdoors. No, it's a respiratory illness. You can only catch this by the saliva coming out of your mouth, touching you and going into your body. Yet we're not being told to cover our faces. I do. I make sure that whenever I go out of the house now, I have my face covered. This is not medical grade, but I've got 2 layers and it stops me touching my face and it stops things coming out of my mouth. Now, if everyone in society, everyone going to the shops, everyone on the buses, everyone on the tube, and doctors and nurses especially had masks, we would be able to stop the spread, and we would not just be down at the 13%, but we'd be able to take it down to like the 7%, 5% a day. But that's not what government wants. Now, finally, the final bit of evidence to this, what government are trying to do here with coronavirus, is the testing. Now, we have caught, as we can see here, the government cannot deny that they have not done enough testing. We have their statistics on screen here. What we see in the red there is the government testing statistics. We know they are lying. We see they are lying. And when they're lying, they make excuses about the reagents. And another one of the excuses that they keep making is that they're waiting for the antibody tests. Now, experts in the field of epidemiology have discounted the antibody tests. They've said that, yeah, I mean, they're cool in the long run, but in the short run, they're kind of pointless because you can't test. If someone's got coronavirus, if you test them with the antibody test that day, you're not going to get a positive result because it takes a few days to weeks after you've been ill for the antibodies to be created in your body. This is how antibodies work. They're not just there. They've got to be created from the combination of the virus interacting with your body and your body fighting it and creating the antibodies. So the antibody tests are rubbish, but what the antibody tests show us, when we combine the fact that government are so intent on using these antibody tests, which are retroactive as opposed to proactive, we look at the slowdown in the start, we look at the lack of testing, we've got no PPE in hospitals, and we look at the slowdown. This all feeds in to the original claim that government discounted, that they were using a plan that was focused on herd immunity. Because the evidence is starting to pile up now on herd immunity. They are not stopping the spread of coronavirus. They are allowing it to spread through the country, but in a very, very slow form. So only a low percentage of people catch it every day, but in the long run, everyone catches it, then they test us with the antibodies, then they can say, look, the country developed a herd immunity, hey! But in this meantime, thousands died. Is that really what we want? No. So, yeah, that is our look at the stats for just now. As I said, after the stats come in today, I am going to rework the model that I created last week because it's gone a bit off track. So, I mean, the model held true until around the 29th, sorry, I'm scratching my head. Do not do that. And if you're going to do that, wash your hands. I am in a clean house. I have not been outside yet, so don't worry. I'm not covered in viruses. But yeah, I knew that once we got to here, if that started to slow down, because I knew that if there was a slowdown here, so everything after that line was potentially going to be wrong, because if the slowdown happened, obviously those were going to be way off. So, but I'm going to check that today. I'm going to use the most recent stats and averages to rework the model so I can give a projection of what I think it's going to look like next week. And more importantly, I want to work out the peak. I want to look at the UK's peak, because there's a lot of talk of the coronavirus peak, but what does the peak look like? How long will it last? How many people will be affected by the peak? Now, when we look at the stats we've got just now, I feel that our peak is away. I think the UK's coronavirus peak will probably start around about next week. But, and this is a big but, unlike other countries where their peak, they're hoping their peak lasts maybe a week. I've got a bad feeling that because of the aforementioned herd immunity plan, which we have a ton of evidence for, I think the peak will be soon, but it's going to last months, because they're going to let this go through society, and they're not going to isolate it. So, from one group of fucking idiots to another. That's my one F-bomb for today. I'm trying to limit my F-bombs, because, quite frankly, I'm unemployed. I would like to work for a media company, and if they see me swearing all the time, that might not be a thing. So let's look at some Donald Trump videos.
We lose more here potentially than you lose in world wars as a country. So there's nothing positive, there's nothing great about it, but I want to give people in this country hope. I think it's very important.
It was going to be this severe when you were saying this was under control.
I thought it could be. I knew everything. I knew it could be horrible, and I knew it could be maybe good. Don't forget, at that time, people didn't know that much about it. Even the experts. We were talking. But we lose more here potentially than you lose in world wars as a country. So there's nothing positive. There's nothing great about it. But I want to give people in this country hope. I think it's very important. It was going
to be this severe when you were saying this was under control.
I thought it could be. I knew everything. I knew it could be horrible, and I knew it could be maybe good. Don't forget, at that time, people didn't know that much about it. Even the experts. We were talking about it. We didn't know where it was going. We saw China, but that was it. Maybe it would have stopped at China. We wish we could have killed it in China.
We knew it was coming. We only had China. What the hell's he on about? Right, so Donald Trump saying that he knew what was happening with coronavirus the whole time is not the point of showing that clip, because it's very easy to find the video footage that was shown on international television of Donald Trump calling coronavirus a fraud, a hoax. And he said, at one point Donald Trump said coronavirus was a hoax to stop him becoming president. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the deaths. More deaths are going to come. And yesterday, we think we have it bad in Britain. Holy America is now the worst country with coronavirus in the world. Grasp that in your head for a second. Now, in the UK, right, we are looking at 50,000 cases as a bad thing, and that's a really grim benchmark that we're coming up to quite soon, and we wish we could avoid. In America, they're almost at 500,000 cases. I shit you not. And it doesn't help that obviously America is divided into the 52 states or whatever like that. Some states in America are taking coronavirus super serious. California's lockdown, all different bits of lockdown. They've closed the beaches, they've stopped people going out. Some areas have went as strong as Britain and Germany, where you're not allowed to meet in groups of more than 2. Other places, you're only allowed to meet in groups of 5 or groups of 10. In some areas, like Florida, they haven't even closed beaches. People are still going to beaches and still travelling around and acting like nothing's happening. And of course, it all comes back to that orange twat that's in the White House. Because if your leader tells you that, you're supposed to believe your leader, and there's people that believe him, and people just go on what he says, and it's really dooming that America is doomed. He, in that press conference yesterday, Donald Trump admitted that there's going to be more deaths in a world war, and he acts like this is a normal. He's like, oh yeah, he acts like the amount of deaths that happened to America in World War I was acceptable, or World War II was acceptable. He thinks that he's just so blasé about it. He's like, oh yeah, there's going to be more death in World War II. It's going to be really bad. It's like, yeah, you maybe shouldn't be talking about that stat, Donnie. That's maybe the sort of stat you should be keeping secret and spinning out at the moment, because that is absolutely terrible. It's like, for him to openly say he expects that much death in his country, like, what the hell? Now, I'm going to play another video from good old Donald Trump, because I wanted to do a couple of Trump videos and finish today, and try and finish it in a way that shows that, hey, UK, we've got it bad, but there's other people that have got it a lot worse than us at the moment. So let's
if you remember, they were looking at that concept. It's a concept, I guess.
Audio doesn't work because this is what happens.
If you don't mind death, a lot of death.
That shit. Let's close that and let's.
If you remember, they were looking at that concept. It's a concept, I guess. You know, it's a concept. If you don't mind death, a lot of death. But they were looking at that in the UK. Remember, they were very much looking at it, and all of a sudden they went hard the other way because they started seeing things that weren't good. So they were, you know, they put themselves in a little bit of a problem. Now Boris tested positive, and I hope he's going to be fine. But in the UK, they were looking at that, and they have a name for it, but we won't even go by the name. But it would have been very catastrophic.
Now, what is interesting there is the name that Donald Trump didn't want to mention is herd immunity. That is what he's talking about there. And the irony is, as we've talked about on today's podcast at length and demonstrated with government statistics and the actions of government in the UK on a wider level, herd immunity is the plan. Boris Johnson did not change his plan. He merely changed how many people were going to be infected. He slowed the infection rate down, but he's not stopped it. If anything, our government is not doing anything to stop the infection rate. I shouldn't be laughing, but hey, I've maybe gone a bit crazy now. That's everything for today. On tomorrow's podcast, right, I want to try and do something fun. I need some ideas. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I should maybe make a model. Should I count coins? If anyone's got an idea for what I can do on stream, so I want to do something that's not related to coronavirus. I want to do something funny and something unique. So, if you've got any ideas, send them to me on Twitter or send them to me on WhatsApp 07752 973 742. If you want to be on the podcast, get in touch. I would like to speak to people on this podcast. Say, it's about everyone. It's not just about me. It's about the stats and the situation of bullshit that we are all in together. So everyone, take it easy. I'll see you all tomorrow, and I'm going to press the button after I've finished talking. Cheerio.